Todd Blanche is up for confirmation as Attorney General tomorrow, and there are a lot of reasons to oppose him. Here's one of them. Did you write this language?
Did I type it up myself?
Did you write this language?
No.
Well, you put your name to it.
I did.
So that's Todd Blanche pretending that my question was whether he actually typed up this bogus IRS settlement. Of course, that's not my question, and he knows it, but you can see from the very beginning this is Todd Blanche trying to deflect, as if I was asking him whether he sat at a typewriter personally. So I pressed him further. So who wrote this?
I don't know the person that actually typed it. I don't know who it is.
Was it one of the president's lawyers, or was it someone from the Justice Department or IRS?
This document would have been somebody within the Department of Justice.
Well, you have no idea who that is.
I don't know the name of the person that typed it up.
So there he is admitting that he doesn't even know who wrote this settlement, this IRS provision that he alone signed. It wasn't signed by any IRS official. So let's dive into this incredible tax giveaway to Donald Trump, signed for by his former criminal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, which reveals just what a sycophant Blanche is, just how devoted he is not to the country, not to the interests of the even enforcement of the law, not to the rule of law, but to the personal wealth, the personal whims of Donald Trump.
I love you, sir.
So this settlement agreement releases, waives, acquits, and forever discharges each of the plaintiffs, that is, Trump and his kids, from ever facing, forever, barred and precluded from the IRS prosecuting or pursuing any claims against them, causes of action, appeals, requests for relief of any kind, monetary relief, damages, blah, 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 as of the effective date of this settlement agreement, which was in May of this year. And it applies to any of the plaintiffs, any related or affiliated individuals, including family and others filing jointly, or parties, including trusts, parent, sister, related companies, affiliates, subsidiaries. It also goes to any case or pending claims by the IRS, any lawfare or weaponization. Who knows what the hell that means? He couldn't even explain it during the hearing. Or any matters currently pending or that could be pending for anything before the date of the agreement. So first, let's talk about the suit that gave rise to this bogus settlement. So Donald Trump becomes president, he loses his re-election, and he becomes president again. And only after he becomes president again does he decide he's going to sue the IRS for $10 billion for the improper release of tax returns years earlier by some contractor for the IRS. So he waits until he's president again to sue them for $10 billion. So you might ask, why didn't he sue them in the 4 years between which he was president and the tax returns were released and he becomes president again? And the answer is he wanted the leverage of being president when he brought the suit, because he knew that he would appoint the IRS officials or Department of Justice officials who would be on the other side of that litigation. And sure enough, he files this suit and he settles with himself. That is, attorneys representing him at the Justice Department and the IRS, and his own attorneys who brought the suit supposedly negotiate a settlement to take the case that they filed away from the court before the court could really look into it and reach this collusive agreement. But here's the thing, the court looked into it anyway. Here's part of what the judge had to say. The court determines that plaintiffs improperly employed this lawsuit to justify a particular award in this matter, access to taxpayer funds, and exemption from audits and other investigations, which was accomplished by leveraging control over defendants, meaning the IRS. The judge also said, the court finds that this matter was brought for an improper purpose, to gain the imprimatur of judicial legitimacy for a settlement that had no viable basis in law or fact. The judge then referred Todd Blanche to the Bar Association in New York for potential disciplinary proceedings, for basically committing a kind of fraud on the court. So what did the judge mean when the judge said that there was really no basis in law or fact for this? Well, several things. The judge pointed out that it covers all kinds of parties who weren't even parties to the lawsuit. So Trump filed this lawsuit on behalf of himself, two of his kids, and the Trump Organization. But the settlement agreement applies to whole categories of people that had nothing to do with that lawsuit. It includes all of his family members. It includes all of his businesses. It includes all the subsidiaries of those businesses. It includes people we don't even know who they are, who are merely listed as affiliates in the settlement document. So how broad could that universe of people and organizations be? Very broad. So when Blanche was asked in writing in questions for the record, who are affiliated individuals under this agreement, who are related companies under this agreement, his answer was, the document speaks for itself. Well, it most definitely does not speak for itself. We have no idea who these companies or individuals are, and what's more, you can fully expect that if the IRS were ever to audit anyone within 1,000 miles of the president, they're going to assert they're covered by this agreement. Some notable companies listed in Trump's financial disclosure that could be covered by this agreement include the following: various cryptocurrency wallets where Trump reports over $520 million in income from token sales associated with World Liberty Financial; a cryptocurrency wallet where he holds $15 billion in governance tokens in World Liberty Financial worth over $50 million; the Mar-a-Lago Club LLC where he reports $77 million in income; Trump's National Golf Club in Washington, D.C., where he reported over $24 million in income, not to mention Trump's watches and sneakers and all those other side hustles. That's not all. Trump's family, his kids, are listed with over 48 other companies that all might get protection under this sham IRS agreement. Forbes magazine estimated it could be worth over $600 million to the Trump family, this settlement giveaway. Now, I asked Blanche a lot about this settlement agreement. I asked him, for example, do you mean to say that of the reported $2.2 or $2.3 billion that Trump earned in his first year of his presidency, that this would cover that none of that could be audited or looked into? And this was his evasive answer.
So he
hasn't filed taxes yet for money he made last year, right? So
yes.
No.
So if he
no protection.
if he filed tax returns this year for money he earned last year, that his sons earned as World Liberty Financial, all those people earned and defrauded taxpayers on it, he faces no liability under this agreement you signed.
There's no evidence taxpayers were defrauded, and he is
but
not protected.
There's evidence in this agreement that you've absolved him of any liability over.
No, I just said he's not absolved. So the question
So this agreement doesn't apply to a tax return filed last year or filed this year?
To tax returns filed after the date of the agreement? No,
No, before the agreement. A tax return filed in this calendar year before this agreement.
Before the agreement, it applies, not after.
Okay.
Now, I don't know whether he's being duplicitous here or deceptive or dishonest or simply clueless, but the agreement provides that any tax filings prior to the signing of that settlement document in the middle of May would be covered, which means if Trump or his organizations or their affiliates or his family filed their tax returns on time, that is on April 15th of this year, to cover all that money, all that business from last year, it would be protected by this IRS settlement agreement, meaning no audits or examinations or any of that stuff. Now, I asked Blanche about this, and interestingly, in Blanche's written answers, he took issue with the use of the word audit, saying that audits aren't even mentioned in that settlement document. But of course, examinations are mentioned in the settlement document and are pretty much indistinguishable from an audit. Indeed, during Blanche's own testimony, what did he refer to? Audits. Here's Blanche talking about audits.
First of all, does this purport to release parties or people who were not parties to the lawsuit?
No, Senator.
Well, it says here that claims asserted by defendants or any of the plaintiffs or related or affiliated individuals, including without limitation family or Others filing jointly are parties including trusts, parent, sister, or related companies, affiliates, or subsidiaries. They weren't a party to the lawsuit, were they?
I didn't hear everything you just said, Senator, but the only parties that were that had any release as respect to any potential audits, even if they existed, were the plaintiffs in the lawsuit.
Do you remember Donald Trump's 30-something convictions, felony convictions for the hush money payments to a porn star, Stormy Daniels? Well, that was a business fraud scheme that was in part about evading taxes. I asked Blanche about that too. Does that mean that this would be covered, that any tax liability from that fraudulent hush money payment scheme Trump would be off the hook for?
In the past, the president was convicted in the case you represented him in of falsifying business records in part for tax purposes. Does this settlement not absolve the president of any liability for tax crimes associated with what he's already been convicted of?
And this was Blanche's answer.
That's not what he was convicted of. Not having to do with
Well,
for tax
I'm
purposes.
happy to read the statement of facts. The participants took steps that mischaracterized for tax purposes the true nature of the payments made in furtherance of the scheme.
Now, Blanche represented him in that litigation, in that hush money case. So Blanche ought to know the facts of that case very well. He ought to know that the statement of facts talked about taxes being one of the reasons that they were misreported, these hush money payments. So he knows that Trump could be potentially liable for taxes arising out of that scheme. But here's the thing. Here's the reason why Blanche was dissembling. And it's because Blanche acknowledged earlier in the hearing that he is recused. That is, he was advised by ethics lawyers not to participate in any case in which Donald Trump, his former client, was involved or his representation of Donald Trump was involved. And here it would be an admission against his own interest to say, yes, he signed a statement relieving Donald Trump of tax liability over a case that he himself had handled for Donald Trump. But the falsehoods around his ethics and his recusals go well beyond the tax agreement. Because I asked him about these comments before CPAC, this very conservative Republican convention.
How many have been canned?
Over 200. Over 200 either left before we came in because they knew it was coming or were fired or took early retirement. They are no longer employed by this department. And when it comes to the FBI, which takes a lot of criticism, especially because of what happened over the past several years, Director Patel has cleaned house there too. There isn't a single man or woman with a gun, federal agent, still in that organization that had anything to do with the prosecution of President Trump.
So there he is taking credit for the firing of all these people that had something to do with the Mar-a-Lago investigation of classified documents or the January 6th investigation of the president. But when I asked him about it, he tried to distance himself from those remarks.
Okay.
There's
Well,
a
you
statement I
were,
gave
you
at
were
CPAC.
bragging about this at CPAC, the firing of these prosecutors, the firing of the FBI agents, the getting rid of everyone who investigated your client. You were proud of that, speaking for the Department of Justice, but you don't think that's a conflict of interest.
But here's the thing. We subsequently had testimony in a shadow hearing of someone who worked on Special Counsel Jack Smith's team, who was one of the public affairs officers that is, he was a spokesman for the case against the president. And guess what? His firing was signed by Todd Blanche.
But he fired you, right?
He signed my termination notice, yes.
He signed your termination notice.
So what will it take to defeat this nomination of someone who would put his name on such a sham document, and someone who has been referred to a bar association because of his lack of ethics, someone who has involved himself in matters that he's supposed to be recused from, someone who's engaged in using the Department of Justice to go after his enemies, the president's enemies? What will it take? Well, on the Judiciary Committee, there are 12 Republicans and 10 Democrats. So all it would take is one Republican to oppose his confirmation, to defeat the confirmation, because an 11-11 tie would mean that the nomination does not move forward. It would just take one Republican. Now, it looks like there is only one Republican still uncertain about how he's going to vote on confirmation of Todd Blanche, and that's